Well, welcome everybody. I am joined by a number of people who know something about combining kindness and goodness. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tony Murrow, one of the pastors here at the church, and I have lots of friends with me in the online comments today. So we're going to start out with introductions. Kristen, we saw you earlier in the service, but go ahead and tell us who you are and who you are to Beacon Hill.
My name is Kristen Bierma, and I am the Executive Director of Beacon Hill and the Statewide Director for Safe Families for Children Alaska.
So there we go. And then next to you, we have...
I'm Jamie Bailey. I'm a family coach supervisor with Safe Families for Children here in Anchorage.
So what is a family coach supervisor?
So what I do is I kind of oversee hostings. I help with like communications and trainings and stuff with volunteers, and we just kind of overall communicate with the churches and everyone involved.
So you make it happen.
Try.
You make it happen.
Do our best.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for being with us. And finally, we have Roselle. Say hello. Introduce yourself.
Everyone. My name is Roselle Busby. I am a new board member with Beacon Hill and also a longtime Change Point member.
Yes. How long have you been at Change Point?
Oh my goodness. I was thinking about this the other day. My daughter was 2 when I first started coming here, and now she's 14 and learning to drive. So about 12 years.
There we go. That's good. Yeah. You and I know you from Awana and Cubby's stuff.
Wife and
yep.
Awana.
It's good. It's good. Well, and you've stepped into a new role now on the board of Beacon Hill and kind of helping us interface between Change Point and Beacon Hill.
Yes.
And on that topic, you guys have kind of a cool event coming up. You want to tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so next week we really want to connect with anybody that has interest in any arm of this ministry. So we're kind of having 2 simultaneous events. We are, for anyone that's coming to our live services or wants to meet in person, we're going to meet at the worship suite next Sunday at 12:45. So immediately following the 11:30 service, and we're there just to answer questions about the ministry. You're going to meet Mary, who's the new ministry lead. That's her role, and myself.
You guys will love Mary. She's great.
Yeah, she is, and Kyle as well. So we're here to answer questions, help with the application. There's going to be snacks. And then also for those that are attending online, we're going to have an online version of that from 1 to 2 p.m. So please join us, and we're here to answer questions, and really we want to connect with you.
So I've got this little a little paper that they brought me about the event. That's next Sunday, November 1st, 1 week from today. And there's the live event, the in-person event is from 12:45 to 2:30 p.m. upstairs here at the Raspberry campus, upstairs in the worship suite. And then if you are wanting to attend online, that's a Zoom link, and we have that Zoom link on the quick links page of the Change Point app. So super duper easy. Next Sunday, way to get involved.
Yeah.
Well, Kristen, let me go back to you. You were telling us just a little bit about the changes that you're seeing, the new challenges that are facing families in our community. Can you speak to that a little more?
Yes. As you can imagine, families are in crisis right now. Those of us who have capacity and resources and social connections and maybe a church community, we're all feeling stretched with this. We are overseeing our children's education, and we're maybe worried if we're going to keep a job, or all the things that are happening, right? But we have some resources and maybe some capacity, and we have some social community that we can lean on. The families that we're serving through our ministries do not have that. They are socially isolated. They have no support, very few resources. So they are reaching out in increasing ways. They are calling our helpline. They're showing up at Beacon Hill. They're calling Beacon Hill asking for diapers, wipes. There are still 3,000 children in foster care in our state. There are still 150 kids who need adoption. So that never has gone away. Those kids still need support, they need adoption. Those foster families are also really struggling, we've noticed, so they need extra support. One example that has kind of been heavy on our hearts is a mom named Miranda, who's been in her apartment, very isolated, getting out of an abusive relationship. She has 3 kids, completely overwhelmed, and she's reached out 7 times, I think, in the last few months. Often late at night, just really overwhelmed, crying, really needing support, prayer. She's asking for respite, anything. She just is desperate for help. And so we've tried to support her as we can. We pray with her every time. but we've not been able to provide her the respite that she's been desperate for because we do not have enough volunteers in Anchorage right now to do that.
It's interesting. You mentioned social isolation. We had a sermon series called Better Together, and I got to take one of those, and I mentioned a Cigna health study that was talking about the rise of social isolation as kind of they were calling it a pandemic, pre-COVID pandemic.
Yes.
And they were showing one of the interesting things was that younger people were more socially isolated and chronically lonely than older people. It's the first time in kind of history that has occurred. And I think of young mothers, I think of young parents, and that whole study was before COVID-19. So just the effects of social isolation and the inability to kind of handle these new stressors if you don't have anybody to fall back on.
Right. And what we're seeing then is it leads to a potential increase in neglect and abuse. Because when you are that socially isolated and you don't have a neighbor or a friend or a grandma or an auntie to call and be like, my kids are driving me crazy, which they do, right? Then sadly, what's happening is it may increase to neglect and abuse. And that's what we're hoping to avoid.
Absolutely. I also think of the increased responsibility facing particularly single parents in this season. Tremendously increased responsibility. Maybe kids aren't going to school. Maybe there's just other social things that have kind of gone away. So you mentioned an interesting statistic was that when you were on stage saying that there were only 2 active Safe Families in Anchorage right now. So Jamie, let me turn to you. You're kind of the coordinator and manager of the Anchorage Safe Families, correct? So what has kind of been the pressures on that? What has been driving that number of available Safe Families down?
Well, we had, quite a few. I think we had between 8 to 10 about a year ago of families that we could call on when we needed to. A lot of things have changed. Some of those families did quite a few hostings. They had some wonderful relationships established, and they just kind of needed some time on those.
Absolutely.
But mainly, we've had about 4 or 5 families that have moved away. I mean, we kind of have, a lot of our families just are kind of that transient. With Alaska, we have a lot of amazing families, but they came and they did just some wonderful stuff, but now they're moving on to do it for somebody else. But yeah, it's been kind of rough. We've been doing a lot of family friend connections right now because we don't have as much in our host family volunteer support, which has been effective, but we're still having to say no to some families. But
Well, I was amazed at the effectiveness of this program, though. I pulled a statistic from your website so this Safe Families for Children, just if anybody's not on the same page, Safe Families for Children is, let me see if I can do this, temporary care, generally short-term care for families that are experiencing a crisis, and it also has a kind of a social surrounding component where you're adding in support and community around this person. Is that pretty close?
Yep.
So the statistic that I read is that 98% of the children who've been in this program have been returned to a parent or family member?
Yes. And
That's
actually this
incredible.
year, I believe it's 100%.
Yeah.
So 100% of the time, if a child is taken into a safe home for a week, 2 weeks, 3 months, whatever the length is, 100% of the time they've returned to their parent.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic and a very effective program. So, but I think about, how limited the scope of the program can be with only 2 host families.
Yeah.
So, and then also, are we still looking for people to be some of those support and community, I assume, come around type folk?
Absolutely.
Miranda could certainly use the help, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in any of those opportunities, all of those things would be things to talk about at the November 1st event next week. That is 12:45 to 2:30 for the in-person event upstairs here at Raspberry in the worship suite, and 1 to 2 p.m. for the Zoom event, and the link for that is in the ChangePoint app. So, Roselle, you're new to Beacon Hill. What was it about this ministry that kind of spoke to you? Why did you want to be involved?
Oh gosh, I don't remember the first time I heard about it, but it was years ago. So my background is in social work, and so that's how I first actually heard about Beacon Hill and Safe Families. And very early on in my career, I was a parent educator, and I went into families' homes and kind of taught them about their young child's development, and families all over the board, from ones that were really struggling to ones that had a lot of resources. And through that, I got to see what a huge difference intervention can make sometimes when families are having a difficult time, and how that prevents future negative outcomes. And a lot of what Beacon Hill and Safe Families does is actually really research-based. Wrapping the families around so you have a safe place for the child, but then you have support given to the family that's in need. So they're not on an island. You're connecting them to relationship. You're offering to connect them to other services they might need. Maybe they need counseling, maybe they need housing, whatever it is. All these things directly impact children and their outcomes. You know, when parents and caregivers are healthy, so are their children. And so that's one big thing that drew me to the ministry. And so when Kristen actually came last year and spoke to us, I was jumping on board. You know, I had applied and to be a host family, and some different things happened where we can't do that right now, but I still really love this ministry and all the things they're doing. So we want to help support any families that have that capacity to either host families or support families placing parents, as well as host families themselves.
You talk about the power of an intervention to affect change. That's something we should all be able to connect with as believers, right? We're the team for whom God intervened and affected change, right? In each and every one of our lives. So that's just a direct demonstrating life in Christ. It's just this ministry is so tied in with that core value that we have as a church. I love it. It's really fantastic. Last year's uncommon gift was Beacon Hill. How did it go? What'd you do?
Oh my goodness.
What's the effect
That
been?
was so overwhelming and amazing. The final number was $116,000. And what that allowed us to do is, for the first time in our 10-year history, was to go into this year with basically a savings, you know, just kind of a backup that has helped fill the gap during this time. So, like you said, we did not know what 2020 was going to bring.
At all.
So to go into to hit March, and we had to close down 2 of our programs. We had to close down the thrift store and the family support center. The thrift store primarily brings in revenue. We wanted to continue to pay our staff. We value them highly. We value our team. Many of them are single parents themselves and or aged out of foster care. So to not be able to pay them while we were shut down would have been devastating for them and their families. So ChangePoint helped us stay afloat through that. What an unbelievable gift for us. That was unforeseen at the time, and it was just an incredible gift and a timely one, so we're really grateful.
Well, that was just God.
Totally.
It was, yeah, I just remember the whole kind of lead up. We had talked about, you know, are we even going to do a UGO this year? There was some weird thing, and then we said yes, and then Beacon Hill kind of came up out of nowhere, and we'd visited you as a staff, and it had just really affected us all in a really dramatic way. And then going forward, it's so wonderful to hear that it worked. So yeah, and you were talking about the challenges with staff going forward. I think that's something that many members of ChangePoint have faced in their own places of employment. Is if you can't pay staff for a period of months, they have to find other jobs. They have to do other things, right? They're not there when you're waiting to come back. So what's the status now? Is the thrift store open? Is the family support center open?
Yes.
What are we doing?
The thrift store is open and has exploded. We were the first thrift store to open in Anchorage, and so it has gone gangbuster. Like, we can hardly keep up, which is really amazing and a little crazy. So lots of donations. It has also kept us afloat because of increased revenue. Our family support center opened back up in April. We were the first visitation center in the state to offer visits again to families. So what happened when the shutdown happened, Office of Children's Services stopped having any in-person visits. So that means children in foster care were not able to see their parents for 2.5 months. And the OCS is still not completely back open, but we said these kids need to see their parents. It helps towards reunification. It helps strengthen that family. Plus, I just can't imagine going for 2.5 months without seeing my babies. I can't imagine it. So we said, we're gonna open up, we're gonna mitigate risk, we can do this. And so we were the first ones in the state, with Office of Children's Services blessing, to open back up. And so we have been operating at about half capacity. We're supervising about 10 visits a week and hoping to increase that slowly so it can be done safely. So we have been open. We had to close down briefly because we had a little bit of a COVID scare, but we've been back open and fully operational. And our Heart Gallery and Safe Families for Children ministries, those just continued through the whole time. And Safe Families actually, I would say, expanded.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to, like I said, respond really creatively to an increased number of families in need.
Speaking of responding creatively and the state of Alaska, what was it you were telling us on stage about being asked by the state of Alaska to what now?
I know, it was a little crazy.
Sure.
Yeah, so early on, they asked me, so the Emergency Response Task Force was put into place by Homeland Security. Sounds pretty, I know.
It's very official.
It does sound very official. And because Safe Families already works with vulnerable children, they asked me to be on that emergency response task force. So as we were, and it was other nonprofit leaders, it was public health, it was Department of Health and Social Services. So it was this wide group of people that were on this task force. And the task force kept looking to me like, okay, well, can Safe Families take in children if a parent is hospitalized with COVID? And I kept saying no, like, I don't know, it just felt too big to be the statewide response. And so over a few weeks, like, we tried to look at other people that could do it, and they kept saying, but you're already doing this. Safe Families is already taking in children when their parents are hospitalized. So can you keep doing that? And finally, it was very clear that God was calling us to say yes to that. And what is so amazing to me about that is that the state, that task force was basically saying, church, will you step in and do this? And so even though the call felt very big, we said yes to that. So it went out on all the communications to hospitals. It's out on any platform that is responding to COVID in the state. It says, if you have a parent that's hospitalized with COVID and they don't have a safe place for their child to be, call Safe Families for Children Alaska.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've had similar things as a church where competencies that the Lord led us to for totally unrelated reasons have been helpful in this season. We have got a study hall program we're running right now for
I love
little
that.
kids whose parents
Yes.
need to work.
Yes.
It's like, well, actually, we do know how to check in a bunch of kids and keep track of which ones they go with, which parent they go with, and we have sanitation protocols in place, and we have big internet backbone. Like, yeah, we could do this. So you were in a very similar position.
Yeah. I love that Change Point is doing that. I think that's just a really practical way to support families right now, and to be a church, be the church, and respond to families. I mean, what a great way to be Christ right now to single parents who don't have childcare for their kids.
Well, thank you. We thought so.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, Jamie, let me turn to you and talk a little bit about kind of the onboarding process for families. So, if people, there's no commitment on this November 1st event. It's a Q&A. Come have a cup of coffee. But if people are interested in this, I mean, what does vetting look like? What does onboarding look like? What does training look like? I mean, it's a very intimidating idea bringing kids into your house, right? So, what does
Yeah.
this look like?
Well, so, I mean, host family is kind of the main, that has the most vetting involved. It's got, a little extra training because we are, we want to, what we're trying to do is we're trying to encourage people and support them and to do something we know they're already gifted in and able to do. So we want to help bring that out in them. So the application, the host family is we've simplified it to be kind of a two-part. You can do it online. We do background checks, fingerprinting, and we do what we call a home study. So we do a home interview with that family. It'll be typically me or Kristen, or it'll be two different employees from Beacon Hill Safe Families, and we're gonna ask them about their life. We're gonna get to know them. We're gonna, do a what do you call it, like a walkthrough of their home. Just make sure everything's safe. It's I mean, it's similar to like a foster care situation. I mean, there are some comparisons there for sure, but, and then we have training, there's training videos, and then we are available to do any in-person training by phone. We want to be available at any time for our host families. And we also have family coaches, family friends, and a lot of that process is just filling out the application and having a conversation with one of us so we can kind of help you identify what you're already good at, what you like to do, so we can kind of help you find a way to serve. And because I feel like that's kind of how everyone does best, right? Is when we can help them get into a spot that they're, already feeling confident in, and we can help them out.
I'm just struck by how human that sounds. It sounds very human, right? You're going to talk to somebody, and they're going to look at you, and we're going to have a conversation. We're going to come over and say hello.
And one thing too about the host families, because it's a volunteer role, you are allowed to say no to us and to tell us, I only, feel comfortable having kids in my home who are under the age of 5. And my husband works on the slope 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So we can only host during the 2 weeks that he's home, or, we're heading on vacation, or I have surgery scheduled. So most host families ideally only host once or twice a year. So it's a very time limited, generally speaking. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, it's a very time limited commitment.
What are the average durations on a placement? Like if it's 2 a year?
Last year, the average length was only 7 days. This
Right.
year, it's been a little bit longer because of COVID. Some of the hostings that started pre-COVID actually lasted through the hunker down. So we've had some 3-6-month hostings this year, so our average length this year is going to be much longer. But last year, we did 101 hostings, and the average length was 7 days. So we're talking a pretty short commitment. And when the family coach supervisors, when we get a call into the helpline from a parent in crisis, the Anchorage, any of the family coach supervisors, they reach out to their host families and, say, hey, we have this need come in. Are you available? This is the situation. So we always say they're allowed to say no to us, and we don't take it personally.
That's tremendous.
I know.
It's one of the best things about volunteer work. Right? Anyway, it's fine. We got some questions coming in here from the chat. All of them are about the thrift store. Everyone would like to know about the thrift store. So who wants to give us a rundown on the thrift store? Do we have a volunteer on that?
I can do that.
All right.
So our thrift store is located on Arctic and Northern Lights, 2807 Arctic. We are open Monday through Saturday, 11 to 6. We are accepting donations 11 to 5 every day. We ask that you just donate things that are gently used, in really good condition, no stains, tears, broken pieces, because what ends up happening, we have volunteers who come in every day and help us sort through the donations, and it's helpful if we don't get a bunch of things that are broken and stained and we have to throw them away and that kind of thing. So just kind of go through and pick out your nicest things, and then we repurpose them to sell. Or we use those donations. Let's say a child goes into a safe home and it's an emergency that night and they don't have any pajamas or clothing. We'll pull from those donations until the church can kind of step in and surround that family. We have been using those donations to actually share with people who are experiencing homelessness. We put out a free table every day, and if we get extra blankets, winter coats, anyone can come and take those. And so on Arctic is a pretty busy thoroughway for the bus. The bus comes by right there. We have people who visit regularly who are experiencing homelessness. And so they love that free table, and just to come and get warm blankets and gear and things that they might need. So it's kind of a multi-purpose thrift store, but 100% of the proceeds go back in to support our 3 ministries.
That's wonderful. One more question. Where can we donate items? Do we need to bring them to the location?
You just bring them to the front door of the boutique and say, I have some donations, and then we usually have someone there that can help bring them in. And then you get one thing is when you donate, you get a coupon for 20% off any item in the store. So
there you go. So Jane, you got to bring them to Anchorage. A corner of Arctic and Northern Lights. It's right across from the McDonald's on Arctic. If you guys know where the Arctic McDonald's is, it's across the street from that. There used to be didn't it used to be like a play place for
Years
kids?
ago, it was a roller rink, and then it was it's been a furniture store. It used to be Arctic Playground.
Yeah, it was a furniture store.
Yes.
It looked like a dresser.
Yes.
It looked like a chest of drawers.
I didn't know it was
Yeah.
In the 70s, it was a roller rink.
In the 70s, it was
So
a
I've been
roller
told,
rink.
yes.
Okay, wow. So a lot of history there. Now it's a family visitation center
Yes,
and thrift store. There you go.
And all of our offices are located there. So if you stop in and one of us is there, we'd be happy to give you a tour. We can give you a tour of the Family Support Center. The Heart Gallery pictures are up on the wall, so it's a great place to stop in and just get a sense of our ministries.
So we barely talked about Heart Gallery today. You want to give us a 20-second overview on Heart Gallery?
Yeah, so Heart Gallery is a web-based ministry that captures youth in foster care. It captures their individuality and their personality a little bit, and it helps advocate for forever homes for them.
So yeah, I was there looking at some of the in-person Heart Gallery stuff just a few days ago. They have these beautiful images. They've got stories from the kids that gives you a sense of their personality and who you're talking about. It's really tremendous and pretty effective, right? You said they had 6 adoptions so far this year?
6 this year. There were 16 last year. I think we've celebrated 33 since we became implementers of the Heart Gallery in 2016.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's really great. So I know we can't believe this, but we are actually almost out of time here. I want to give each of you the opportunity to say anything that you didn't have the opportunity to say from my questions. So Roselle, we'll go to you first. Is there anything that you would like to say to the ChangePoint family that you didn't have the chance to say?
Yeah, just that we want to connect with you. There's been some turnover with the ministry lead, and so Mary's has jumped on and is willing to lead that. So we're partnering with her, and we want to just support whatever way we can anyone that's interested in volunteering at any capacity. The number one need is host families, also family coaches. That's the role that Mary was in before, and so there's that opening there. But anybody that has the gift of hospitality that would like to, maybe cook a meal when there's a hosting going on, or help with transportation, or be a babysitter to provide, a date night for a family that's in the middle of a hosting. There's so many opportunities. We just want to connect people, and if there has been interest in the past and then, life happens, we want to reconnect with you. So please reach out, and we're here to support you.
So where do they reach out? I've got a card here with an email address. Should I read this?
Yes.
All right, the email address from my card is safefamilies@changepointalaska.com. Safefamilies@changepointalaska.com. So any inquiries, questions, comments, whatever you want to contact Roselle, you can. Safefamilies@changepointalaska.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jamie, you're up. Well, any final words? Anything you want to say to the ChangePoint family you didn't have the chance?
Yeah, so I think sometimes, serving can be hard, and these roles might seem like there's a lot to them, and I just want you to know that we're not asking you to solve any problems. There can be a lot of stuff going on, but we are just asking for a relationship. That's our biggest thing. That's what we're offering, and we're doing it because we know why we're compelled, right? The love of Christ, and it's just that goes so far in these hostings, so it's not as daunting as it seems. I know I've had some volunteers in some host families I don't know how to solve this, and that. That's not what we're asking. We just want you to offer a relationship, offer your availability to talk, to pray, to just be there, and that goes so far in all of our, we have some amazing stories to share, but, relationship is the key, so.
You guys do have amazing stories, and their Facebook is full of amazing stories. Safe Families makes a lot of great videos, and then a lot of people like to make videos about Safe Families because they have great stories. So if you go on their Facebook page, they've got a tremendous amount of stories of families who've done this, and from children, and from kids who've been affected, and kids who've aged out. It's just lots and lots of great stuff on their Facebook page. So, Kristen, I think it's wholly appropriate that I give you the final word before we say goodbye. What would you like to say to the ChangePoint family?
Well, I am just filled with gratitude for ChangePoint, honestly. We feel very supported. Beacon Hill it's a church-led ministry. I mean, we're here as staff and we do our thing, but it's really about churches engaging in this work. And so we can't do what we do without churches in this community. And so to have ChangePoint on board and supportive, not only financially with the Uncommon Gift, but just people like Roselle and Becky Moore is on our board, and just having you guys be champions for us and engaging in this work is an incredible encouragement to us. So I'm filled with gratitude for you, and I really do believe that ChangePoint can and will make an incredible difference in this city and in this state, in the lives of vulnerable children. And now's the time for churches to step into this, to be really courageous. And so we're here to help facilitate that and to help partner to really change lives and bring hope and healing and the love of Christ.
Well, we're grateful for you guys too. It's incredible ministry work that you're doing, and we're glad to be partnered with you in it. Well, that's all the time we have today. Thanks so much for joining us. Beacon Hill ladies, thank you so much for being here. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Until next week, God bless you, Change Point family. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday.